So.
Fernando Alonso, this time last year you were making your debut with Minardi, but now you're a test driver. Is that very difficult?
Yeah, it's quite difficult, you know, for any racing driver. The races are our life, and to be in front of the TV is a different feeling. But anyway, I think I have a very important job to do this year, and I'm quite happy here in Renault.
I've heard you're flying off to go testing next week, is that right?
Yes, I have the flight now, 6 o'clock, and next week in Silverstone we try to improve a little bit the car, and we see in Malaysia if it's any better.
Do you have a firm understanding that next year you'll be in the race car?
No, it's not 100% sure. In Formula 1 it's very difficult, but I hope that, and have the contract with Renault, and I think if it's not here in another team, but next year I come back in the races, I hope.
Fernando, thanks a lot.
Nick Damon there with Fernando Alonso, and he looks pretty confident, I have to say, John, that something will happen for him for next year.
I think he does, and I think also his business manager is Flavio Briatore. So if anybody's going to know what the program's going to be in 2003, it will be Flavio. And Alonso was very, very impressive. I thought one of the stars of the 2001 season, and really rather sad that he's not able to be in a competitive car this year, because, you know, the year out of the car, it's a year out of the car. You see young stars coming along like Sato and Massa, apart from Raikkonen and Montoya, who apparently that brake problem we were looking at a little bit earlier at the end of that session, he was running the qualifying brake ducts, and he just simply came in too hard, and that's why they caught fire.
Qualifying brake ducts, of course, not allowing a lot of air onto the brake disc. They don't need to, where they're only doing a couple of laps in qualifying to try and extract the fastest speed. They don't allow a lot of air onto the disc to cool the brakes down. Now, Peter Windsor, I think, has caught up with Norbert Hauer, so we'll go down to Peter and catch up with the latest.
Norbert, obviously a little bit to go before qualifying in the race, but what's your take on the event so far?
Well, certainly there is, in the moment we have a disadvantage on the tyre. We need more rubber on the asphalt, that is for sure. Bridgestone has the upper hand in the moment, but that can change. Once more rubber is on the asphalt during today's qualifying and tomorrow's race, I think that will work for us.
And where do you feel you're at from an engine point of view now versus Ferrari and BMW?
Nowhere. You know, there are lots of rumours. I just read in the magazine, engine is down on power and all this, you know. I mean, I laugh about it. At the end, it's the lap times that count, and if you compare our top speeds to the competitors, I think we are very good up. And well, you know, Formula 1 is a big market, and if somebody starts to say, well, this engine is down, and everybody repeats that, but the truth is, well, in our case, quite the opposite. I think we are still leading.
Small regulation change this year. You can actually make electronic changes to the car now. Does that affect the way you operate from an engine standpoint?
No, not at all. No.
You can't make changes during the race or during qualifying to your advantage?
You can, but that certainly does not change your strategy, basically.
And finally, working with a new driver, has that been an interesting experience?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a young guy. I think he did 37 car races or something like that. And I still find it amazing how good he is after only that experience. And he's quick and he's focused. He did not do mistakes. He was very focused in testing, and well, I think it's a good solution, good choice.
Now we'll see in qualifying in the race. Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
So Norbert Hauer of Mercedes certainly defending any claims that their engine might be a little down on power. There was a little bit of talk about that on the initial testing, although more recently both David and Raikkonen have been saying that a few changes have come through and things have got better and better in recent testing.
Well, I think Norbert is right in saying that, you know, people speculate and they say one thing, and then what speculation that becomes a fact, and on it goes. And the truth is, nobody really knows the power of anybody else's engines other than those people, the manufacturers themselves. You can guess, you can do certain things. There's audible tests that can give you an idea of what the engine's revving to, and approximations. And what really counts is going to be in the qualifying session, and secondly, what's going to count is who wins the race. Norbert's saying, well, we think we're not quite up to speed on the tyre situation. That would certainly be the case with the ambient temperatures being lower, and of course Michelin, back in their second year, would have gained some knowledge from what they had here in 2001. But if the temperature is below what you had in 2001, then, you know, you're going to be trapped.
Now, The free practice has begun. This is the last 45-minute session before they get into that all-important qualifying session. And we've got an opportunity to ride with Giancarlo Fisichella in the Jordan Honda. Let's just watch a moment. Across the line there for Fisichella, and not a particularly fast lap, and you could see that, John, the fact that there wasn't too much movement on the steering as he went around that lap gives you the clue that he's not really pushing at this stage.
No, it wasn't an installation lap as such, it was just an out lap. Even in the 30 minutes since the session ended, track conditions do change, and you just want to feel your way. There's no point, there's nothing to be gained right now to go out and try and give a white knuckle ride, because you might get caught out. I mean, you've got one Jordan up in the axle stands right now being repaired. You don't want two of them. And Fisichella did have that scare you saw earlier in that first session, and the exit of turn 13 where he looped it around on the grass. So he's being prudent. But Fisichella, on the lap he's on now, has picked up the pace a little bit, and in fact has been quite...
Meanwhile, in the pits, the Williams BMW of Montoya is still being worked on to solve that brake fire that they had earlier on. I think they've got that well sorted out now, and he's now keeping an eye on the time, seeing what other people can achieve. That gives them an idea of whether the track conditions are improving as the rubber continues to go down and as perhaps the temperatures change a little more. Heinz-Harald Frentzen out of his arrows for a moment before getting back out. And
Heinz with a very, very short Heinz-Harald Frentzen haircut, something we're not familiar with Heinz. He normally has much longer hair than that. It makes your driving a lot easier. If you've got short hair, your head says a lot cooler. I did this. I went through the long hair, short hair thing.
Frentzen, just one quick question. Your second day in the car now, is it performing as you expected?
Yes, so far, yes. I mean, we have done some little testing before, and more or less we had time to identify what the good sides and the bad sides are for the car. We're trying to tune up the car here for this track, especially. Everything is scheduled so far, luckily, and hopefully we can squeeze some more time out of the car.
Heinz, thanks a lot.
Towards this very, very quick turns 11 and 12. Listen through here. It's that little lift in the middle, just waiting to see if we can hear anybody who keeps it nailed through there.
Well, what some of the drivers are doing is they're using their left foot. As I was talking about earlier, they modulate between the brake and the throttle. And I think it was Barrichello yesterday was certainly very quick through there by using the left foot brake but not having to come off the throttle so much.
Lots of curb through the penultimate corner at turn 15. This is turn 16, the last corner that completes the lap of Albert Park here. Let's just see what this time is for Jarno Trulli, a 1:30.664. Yeah, forget that one. That's not one that's going to matter to him. It looks as though he's going to push a little harder on this next one and not going too wide this time.
Well, certainly Mika Salo got pretty wide coming out of turn 14 and just over brakes himself, locks it up. You can see the way the front tyres, that left front in particular, looks like the rubber is shearing across the top of the tyre. That's usually an indication of a compound incompatibility with the track temperature, and certainly running wide in turn 14 compromised his braking into 15, and that's the result.
David Coulthard sits and waits. The tyre blankets are taken off, so it looks as though he's about to come out on track now. He currently lies third fastest after the morning free practice.
It doesn't look like there's an awful lot of rubber in those tyres on Coulthard's Michelin. our used tires, of course. It's difficult just to judge the depth of tread because you get sometimes, again, that sort of scuffing of the rubber. But didn't look like they were very, very fresh tyres to me.
That's right. Look at this, Montoya, just 0.2 of a second down. Well, let's say just 0.2. That's quite a big margin, really, over the first relatively short sector of the lap. But Montoya putting in a quick one here.
Well, he certainly had the personal best time and also the fastest speed up into that very tricky little turn 9. Watch him through here, 10 and 11 and 12. Using a lot of road, but the car doesn't look bad. But there's rain on the camera.
Yes, well, maybe we've seen that a few times, and perhaps just a bit of moisture around, and that might limit his opportunity to improve on this lap. But this should still be a pretty good lap there. Again, using quite a lot of curb, now coming through the last sequence.
Yeah, it looked to me like he turned in rather early into that corner, ran high on the exit and compromised maybe the lap time ultimately. Got to beat a 1 minute 27 at 28.2. He has, handsomely.
Third
place, yeah, good.
Yeah, good effort there from Montoya, and that's more what we would expect to see as the battle between Montoya and Schumacher, which was certainly present in the qualifying sessions last year, will continue today.
And Montoya now is the quickest of the Michelin cars. David Coulthard had been, now Montoya's leapt 1 place up ahead of him. That's the first one I've seen using the curb like that on the inside. There's his teammate Ralf Schumacher. Ralf out, beginning another lap. Ralf currently in 6th place. And I just wonder what's going on in his head. I mean, he just hates the thought of being quicker, of being beaten by Montoya.
But he came out on top yesterday by a fraction, didn't he? He was just that little bit faster than Montoya. You know, it's funny with Ralf. He's always, to my eyes, performed that little better than sometimes expected throughout his Grand Prix career. He's always seemed to do that little bit better than I thought he would, and he's moved on and he's found new strength again. Now, last year started the season so well, but definitely dropped off a bit towards the end of the year. I wonder how he's going to react this time. Fascinating to watch the battle between the two of them.
Well, he will react. It'll be one way or the other, but somebody who's certainly reacting is Kimi Räikkönen. Kimi Räikkönen currently 5th quickest. This is, of course, Ralf Schumacher we're watching, but I'm just watching the timing screens. Räikkönen is putting in personal bests in the first 2 sectors, so he's going to push David Coulthard. He might actually overtake him, though there was 0.3 of a second. I doubt it might be that much.
Here comes Ralf then through the very quick turn 14, now through turns 15. A little bit of a brake locking that shouldn't have hurt him too much through the final corner, turn 16, and accelerating down to the start-finish line. He's not going to threaten his brother's time, and he goes 4th fastest just behind Juan Pablo Montoya.
And while we were watching Ralf Schumacher, somebody we have not seen much of at all weekend, Jacques Villeneuve, he's suddenly leapt up to 7th place, 1 ahead of his teammate Panis, who's an 8th in the BAR Hondas.
So once again, we're looking at team formations pretty much. We've got Ferrari 1-2, that's Michael and Barrichello, then Williams 3 and 4, Montoya ahead of Ralf, then the McLarens 5 and 6 with Coulthard ahead of Räikkönen, and then the BARs 7 and 8, Villeneuve and Panis. Then we break at last that team sequence, because when we get down to 9th place, it's Nick Heidfeld, and in 10th place, the Jordan of Giancarlo Fisichella. Quite a big gap in terms of times at this stage, and that's going to be one we'll watch as we go through qualifying, the spread of times throughout the field. Looking at the free practice times we've seen so far, the battle for pole surely is going to be between the 2 Ferraris, perhaps the Williams, and perhaps the McLarens.
You've got the field covered there, Ben, you know.
Yeah, well,
I mean, who's it going to be?
Well, it's got to be one of those 3 teams. Well, Ferrari, I have to say, at the moment.
There are basically 3 teams who can win pole position, and the one that's got to be favourite, I think, from everybody's perspective, is Ferrari, and of course Michael Schumacher is the man, but Rubens Barrichello has been very impressive. He's been extremely smooth. Michael, you can see him working the car more than Barrichello's been doing. Just depends on traffic, the luck of the draw, literally, and you could find Barrichello on that pole position.
Now here comes Massa once again, and look at that car moving around. He's attacking this track once more, throwing it in. You can see the double bite on the steering there as he turned in to the right hand and leading out onto the far section out of turn 8 and now up through turns 9 and 10. Again, there's that sort of double bite on the steering.
Yeah, he overran into that corner, just let the car, he went in late, he turned the car quickly, but it ran wide, caught the curb, then he had to check it and bring it back, so that'll shave maybe 0.2 of a second off what might have been a very good run.
It's interesting what you were talking about earlier, John, when we saw Sato attacking hard. Is it something about the novice drivers where you seem to see so much more steering input going in?
I think it's probably because they're just young, they're enthusiastic, they're just driving on the limit. They haven't got the experience yet that they will gain in years to come. So, I mean, look at that, lots of steering wheel movement, but there's rain on the screen. You can see it now spotting on the camera lenses, and it certainly was worse on the backside of the circuit. So for Felipe Massa, currently in 11th place, and that's where he stays.
Still a good effort from this new young driver, new to Formula One. Oh, and we've got one of the Toyotas running
McNish.
wide.
Alan McNish has gone off. Well, he just about, well done, Alan, you got your thing going again.
I think it's actually his teammate, isn't it? It's Mika Salo.
Oh, it is indeed,
yeah.
You're right.
It is Mika Salo, and he's managed to regain the track, and thankfully no damage done, so should be all right to bring it back into the pits at the end of this lap.
Yeah, that was down at the end of the back straight, turn 13. So I don't know if we get a chance to have a look at what actually happened to Salo. It just looked like it was maybe a case of just too late in the brakes, and maybe the back got away from him, but he was fortunate just to get to, here we see it coming down. It was very tight on the camera. We can't. Oh, he decided he was too quick. He decided he was too quick, and he took the other option, and very nearly got himself bogged down in the process.
He bailed out and he got away with it, which was fairly fortunate as well, travelling at very high speeds before going onto the brakes, but thankfully he'd gotten rid of some of that speed before he went off across the gravel trap. Now, Pedro de la Rosa, the other Jaguar. What can he do to try and improve Jaguar's fortunes? I have to say they're not too good at the moment. Irvine down in 18th and De La Rosa down in 21st.
Not at all good, but look at this, Rubens Barrichello. Now watch him through 6. I mean, he's pushing very hard, but looked pretty good to me. Personal best in that first segment as well. That indicates why. You can see that little bit of movement of the steering wheel. This is not a comfort run Ben is on. This is a very serious run.
Well, it's good to see Rubens attacking once again. You know, disappointing that he didn't manage to get a Grand Prix win last year. Michael had such a dominant season, and it just didn't come together for Rubens to be able to take a victory. Surely this year he's going to be out to show that it can be done, even when you are playing second fiddle to the best driver in the world.
I mean, every time we go on board with a Ferrari, be it Schumacher or Barrichello, it's just a pleasure to watch a really good car and a good driver working together. Well, 26.1 is Schumacher's time. He's gotten closer. 26.3. So
another great effort from Rubens Barrichello, and we've got one of the big Hondas at the side of the track being pushed by marshals. It's Olivier Panis, and yellow flags flying.
That's actually just at the pit lane exit.
Right, yes. Yeah, I wonder what's happened to him there then.
So they may just have a stall or something, but whatever it was. He might have been doing a practice start and it didn't quite work, but again, you can see the spotting on the rain of the camera, and that's going to get heavier. I think we're going to see this session ending up being wetter than we anticipated it.
Still could make qualifying somewhat entertaining, as you were saying earlier this weekend, John, that sometimes the best sessions are those with the changing conditions, and that could be what we're in for today.
It's fun for us, it's not much fun for the teams. It's a real, ride like you just don't want to know about it. The teams are sitting there on eggs, the driver's sitting on eggs. You've just got to time it right. You can be very fortunate, but it's the best way to mix and match a grid.
That's right, and it certainly leaves things very open on race day as well. So the current situation, Michael Schumacher fastest, Rubens Barrichello second, Montoya just ahead of teammate Ralf Schumacher, but look at the gap between the Ferraris and the Williams, about a second between them, and that just shows you that that 2001 Ferrari is working brilliantly here, as you've been saying.
Well, the car is obviously working brilliantly, but I think also it is a tyre thing. It is a very much a question of one tyre company who are working in these ambient conditions. The other tyre company haven't quite got the compounds to match those conditions.
We can see there that Ferrari's weather report says a slight risk of rain. Let's hope it remains a slight risk, although, as I say, it might liven things up a bit if we have a shower and everyone then has to time it perfectly to get back out and get some dry running. You can see the fans certainly reckon it's raining out on the track, and I think that's going to restrict the number of cars we'll see out there. There are still 26 minutes to go in this second free practice of Saturday morning, but the weather conditions are not going to be conducive to many more laps for a little while.
And there you can see all around the circuit everybody is taking protection from the rain. It is beginning to fall heavier by the minute, and that is disappointing indeed. Eddie Irvine was on a quick lap. He's still actually done a personal best in all the segments, and he's currently in 18th place. He should improve. Well, unfortunately that last couple of corners maybe was sufficiently wet. He didn't, still stays 16th, and that's further frustration for the Ulsterman. He's wanted it so badly. Look, there's the rain falling now. That's getting very heavy indeed.
Great picture. And
Trevor Foster looks, he just thinks, what are we going to do? When are we going to get this thing together?
Well, it's still early days. First Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher still out there despite the rain, and somebody getting a bit crossed up behind him.
Well, that was young Mr. Young. Alex Young got sideways in the Minardi.
There he is. You can see him just behind Michael. In fact, they've all slowed backed off now. Kimi Raikkonen as well. I don't think he's going to start pushing hard in these conditions. There's not a lot that you can prove. All you can do is damage the car, and with only 24 minutes of this session to go, a short break and then qualifying, the last thing you need to give the team is a bent motor car to get ready for qualifying.
Well, Raikkonen's just going to cruise round in relative terms and bring it back into the pits, I suspect. Down around this part of the track, it appears not to be as bad as it is at the top end, but there again you can see rain spots on the camera lens on the car. But look at it, it's just tipping it down in pit straight, so Raikkonen's going to be called in if he doesn't choose himself to make that trip. And you know, you've got to be so careful. You can make a mistake. Raikkonen has done a lap, he's done a 1 minute 41.7. Maybe he's just going out for some experience to see what the track reacts like on grooved slicks when it is wet, because you never know if it's going to be a mixed race on Sunday. You might want to choose at some point to go to slicks, so better to find out when it doesn't matter than when suddenly you have to make the decision and you could get it wrong.
Well, the umbrellas are out. This is more what we might expect to see at Silverstone than we normally expect to see at Melbourne. Normally fantastic weather conditions at this time of year, and has been for previous Grand Prix, but can't always be the case. And we're definitely getting some rather poorer weather conditions this time. You were saying, John, how the Melbourne summer hasn't been a great one, and it seems to be holding true to that this weekend. Well, Raikkonen does come in, as you said.
Absolutely. I mean, if it wasn't a question of him being, he just
from there and just stopped the engine. So, as it turns out, with the rain coming down, I guess we haven't lost out a lot.
How annoying is it, this weather, that won't say one way or the other?
Well, it certainly makes it a bit of a lottery, but another couple of hours till qualifying, so it might settle down. But the weather forecast for the day said that it's off and on all day long, so you keep your fingers crossed. Who knows, it could fall your way or it could go the other.
Cars look quite quick, though, which must be quite pleasing.
Yeah, no, generally everything's going reasonably well so far, but then we haven't done qualifying yet, have we?
Dave, thanks a lot.
th place, and pretty much as had been expected from their earlier testing performances, the Jaguar team is struggling. We've already seen changes once again amongst the engineering staff at Jaguar. We're looking in at the McLaren Mercedes team now, and David Coulthard just jumping out of his car, and I think, sorry, Kimi Raikkonen just there. I think, as you said, that's not going to be much action taking place for a while now.
Well, there are the temperatures. Air and track are 17, 78% humidity. Well, that's a surprise. It's raining, and it's been a really unfortunate weekend this weekend. The track was wet when the cars went out on circuit. On Friday morning it looked gloomy. It did lift in the afternoon, but the ambient temperatures have never risen. Yet, you know, tomorrow, Sunday, it could be 27, 28 degrees. Melbourne is one of those parts of Australia that it just changes so quickly and so dramatically.
Well, a chance to look on the jumbo screens around the track to see what's going on, and glance around the fans who have gathered here this weekend. And we've got an opportunity to catch up with the boss of the BAR Honda outfit, Dave Richards.
Dave Richards, Olivier Parnis stopped at the end of the pit lane. What was the problem?
Well, we don't honestly know. He was just doing a practice start from there and just stopped the engine. So, as it turns out, with the rain coming down, I guess we haven't lost out a lot.
How annoying is it, this weather, that won't say one way or the other?
Well, it certainly makes it a bit of a lottery, but another couple of hours till qualifying, so it might settle down. But the weather forecast for the day said that it's off and on all day long, so you keep your fingers crossed. Who knows, it could fall your way or it could go the other.
Cars look quite quick, though, which must be quite pleasing.
Yeah, no, generally everything's going reasonably well so far, but then we haven't done qualifying yet, have we?
Dave, thanks a lot.
Dave Richards, well, he's getting
Doesn't give
back.
anything away, does he?
He doesn't, no,
He's a
not at
canny
all.
old sod, isn't he, our Dave?
I tell you what, he's going to make those changes to BAR, and we could see a big improvement from them, although there is obviously a lot of dependence on everything that is supplied to you, and if Honda aren't producing the horsepower, then there's not an awful lot they're going to be able to do about moving up through the field. Bridgestone and Michelin, of course, are battling away, and the battle on wet conditions might be slightly different, but we're going to have to wait and see for all that in a little while.
While the rain continues to fall in Melbourne, let's trip along to the Williams pit and join Dickie Stanford. Dickie, you've flown halfway around the world and you found the weather pretty much the same as it is here.
Yes, I suppose we could have stayed back in England for the weather like this.
How is it affecting your preparations for the race then?
Quite a bit. Obviously, keep going in and out the garage. We're having to stop and wait for the rain to ease.
You know, we have at least 8 different feeds coming into this studio, and from at least 2 of those feeds, we've been able to work out that you're having trouble in the last sector.
Yes, we're losing quite a bit in the last sector, so this is something we've got to work on for this afternoon.
Are you confident of curing that problem?
Yes, we're fairly confident to get that time back.
Now, a lot of pressure on David Coulthard this year, but a lot of pressure on all the top 3 drivers. But do you reckon that in Juan Pablo Montoya, you maybe have the man who could dislodge Michael Schumacher?
I believe both of our drivers can probably dislodge Michael.
Discreetly and diplomatically put. We'll let you get back to curing that last sector problem. Thanks very much, Dickie. And we'll move along now to Peter Windsor, our roving reporter, who's talking to Mike Gascoigne.
Mike, things looking good for you, but let's talk about tyres a little bit. Looks like the Ferrari's right up there on the front. Is that indicative of a gulf between Bridgestone and Michelin at the moment?
I don't necessarily think so. I mean, this isn't ideal conditions for Michelin tyres, very cold track temperature, which is not what we'd expect here at this racetrack at this time of year, but it's what we've got. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to tell. We'll have to see how we end up, but there might be slight advantage at the moment.
And how's the performance of your car going?
We're very pleased. Drivers are very happy. We're quite confident of doing quite well, but the conditions aren't great for qualifying. If it's going to be wet or damp in qualifying, then it makes it very interesting. So we'd prefer it to be dry.
Well, best of luck. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Peter.
Well, Mike not giving much away either, and just really confirming what we have been suggesting throughout the 2 days, that low tyre temperatures and low ambient temperatures don't work for Michelin. Somehow Bridgestone have got a tyre that really is working so well, but in particular on the Ferrari, that is of course the prime team for Bridgestone. Jordan and Sauber are the other 2 principal teams, and Sauber is the one that's getting the better of those 2. But McNish went out on the Michelin's, come back in again, and I think he's decided, well, there's not much point in continuing at this stage.
No, but as you said earlier, John, perhaps just making a useful foray onto the track to see about the conditions and learn a little bit in case it's like this for qualifying or for the race tomorrow. For Toyota, every experience out there at the moment is a learning experience.
Indeed it is. Well, there's somebody who's going to get lots of it, Jacques Villeneuve. Villeneuve currently 7th quickest, which is a very good position for the BAR Honda team. And of course this, oh, look at that. Car goes one way, then just snaps back the other way. That's what's been a problem with that car pretty much through its history, through last year, and thought they'd maybe gotten a handle on it for this year. Mind you, if the track is slick, as it certainly will be, but Jacques can be a bit of a beast with a car. He doesn't mind throwing a car around, and in conditions that aren't ideal, he's certainly not afraid to go out and give it a bit of stick.
likes this track, doesn't he? You remember his debut on this very
pole
track.
position.
He took pole position. That was a pretty impressive effort from him, and didn't quite work out for him in the race. He ended up finishing in second place in the race itself, but also scored BAR's first ever championship points here at Melbourne. So good memories of the track. He does enjoy it. Does seem to suit that attacking style of his.
Yes, and mind you, when the first year in BAR, just coming through turns 10, that's when the rear wing fell off and he went sliding down the track. Luckily no damage to him and very little in fact to the car.
Car. In the pits at the moment, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, tyre blankets still on, but the track conditions obviously improving and teams beginning to send the cars back out. Just 13.5 minutes of this final free practice session to go, and this is the last preparation before that all-important qualifying. Even some practice pit stops going on here. This is Jacques Villeneuve just making sure that he's stopping on the spot.
Well, Villeneuve was on an intermediate tyre, interestingly enough, but the conditions were getting too dry too quickly, so he obviously had to come in. He's going back out in a set of used grooved slicks, and I'm surprised. Well, you know, 13 minutes, there's time to do another couple of laps, come in. Should he want to go out in a brand new set of tyres to do so? I don't know how many laps these tyres done. They may be fairly fresh, so it'll give him a fairly clear indication as to what's going to come up in just over 2 hours' time.
Now then, here's Michael Schumacher coming along to the first sector point, 28.787, his previous best. This won't be as fast, I'm sure, but it might give us an idea of how slippery the track is at this point.
It doesn't matter, the car looks fantastic. Whatever way you look at it, it just performs.
0.7 of a second off, but that does show us that the track down there is not that far off. A few more laps from these guys and we're going to be back to the same times again.
Well, I would say a maximum of 5 minutes. What we need are more cars out. We've only got Villeneuve out, Michael Schumacher out, and now Jenson Button's gone out. We need more cars on the track. If they want to let the clock click away, clock down, they're going to lose out information, they're going to lose out time on the track that will be valuable.
Lots of support for the Ferraris here in Melbourne. There's a big Italian contingent in Melbourne anyway, and they love to support their Ferraris. Michael Schumacher, winner here last year and the previous year as well, going on to take the World Championship on both occasions, and that's what he wants to do. Take that 5th title this year. Wouldn't that be amazing, to match the record of Juan Manuel Fangio? He'll have lots of support here in Melbourne for that this weekend, to start off his campaign with victory around Albert Park. Now then, across the line this time. How much slower than his previous best? 4 seconds, so a bit of time before we see the times right back to where they were, but Michael's still pushing.
That lap was a little bit of an exploratory one. We're going to see a better lap, I think, from Michael Schumacher. Jacques Villeneuve just drips off one of those tear. It's not tearing off.
A non-tear off, tear off.
Yeah.
Jacques continues on round. It's still Michael Schumacher fastest from Barrichello, Montoya, Ralf Schumacher, Coulthard, Raikkonen, Villeneuve 7th, Panis 8th, Heidfeld 9th, and Fisichella, the man you're looking at, in 10th place.
Well, Schumacher's just gone through that first split time and he's, well, 2.5 seconds away from his previous best.
Still the track conditions not ideal. Gary Anderson leaning over the car there, John. Gary making his return to Jordan has been such a fundamental part of Jordan from its early days, and then leaving the team, now making a return. I wonder how it's all coming together for them in that team structure.
Well, I think that Gary coming back to the team was a very emotional thing, both for Gary and for Eddie Jordan. I'm not certain that everybody else in the team was as convinced as maybe Eddie was, but that's an issue which goes on in most teams. But there is an issue about Ekbal Hamadi, who is the official designer of the car. He is currently, as the team say, on holiday. Speculation is that he may not be with the team much longer, but the team themselves will not make any comment on that, so we've only got the speculation and no real comment being made by the team. It needs to be cleared up, because for both parties they need to know what they're going to do in the future.
It might only be the beginning of the season, but it is often when you see changes amongst the engineering staff taking place at this time of year, isn't it?
Well, look, we've seen it at Jaguar. Steve Nichols virtually just walked away from the team after the initial test of that Jaguar R3 down in Spain. Oh, Michael's off. Michael's had a little trip over the gravel.
Now, this not a sight we see too often. We mentioned that he's actually crashed here in Melbourne on both Fridays in the last couple of years, but he didn't crash that time, but definitely a little trip wide.
Yeah, well, that was coming out of, that was the, where is he, what's he doing, well, down into turn 3, and again the gravel being kind, so let him get through it, but of course gravel in the air boxes, it makes a mess of the track. You drive it back on, put the brakes on it, scatters all over the place. What
was the mistake there, John? What was he trying to do? What actually went wrong?
I'd like to see the replay of it again, see it more accurately, but certainly he came down and carried quite a lot of speed. Clearly he wasn't about to make the corner, so he just chose the easier option and run across the grass over the gravel. Look at this.
Something you seem to be able to get away with here more in Melbourne than in some tracks.
Yes, it is. The gravel, ordinarily the gravel should hold you more than that, but again, because of the rain that's fallen, it does get compact, easier to travel across.
Nick Heidfeld crossed the line in the Sauber, bouncing around a little bit more over the curbs, and that's what you were talking about, how the Ferrari rides the curbs, rides the bumps. Some of the other cars, you can see quite clearly, don't ride it as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Ferrari is clearly, I think, the best car on the circuit. Everybody else is, by comparison, not quite as good, and the Sauber was being worked quite hard by Heidfeld, and this is a fairly serious effort on the part of the young German. Heidfeld currently in 9th place. So we'll have to look and see what he's going to do as he comes out of that first segment, 29.4, which is compared to Ruben Barrichello's best, which is second best, is about 0.4 of a second away.
Now Nick Heidfeld determined to prove this year that McLaren were wrong in not choosing him to partner David Coulthard, and there's an opportunity. It looks as though the Sauber is a good enough chassis once again, with plenty of power to prove that he has got the capability of running in a top team. Let's just watch him up through the latter part of the lap here.
Very drivable indeed, and Heidfeld doing a good job not overworking the steering wheel. And having to wait there and check the car coming through turn 16. But nonetheless, a lot of effort went into this particular lap. Heidfeld stays in 7th place, improved in the second segment, in fact improved overall in time but didn't improve in position.
So Heidfeld continues on his way around. We're looking Mark Webber now, the Australian driver, making his debut here this weekend, as we mentioned before, and with the Minardi. This has got the Asia-Tech engine. Now this is not a factory, a manufacturer engine. It's based on the old Peugeot engine, but it has been changed and evolved a great deal from when it was a Peugeot engine.
Yes, and also I think the reliability side of it has also been improved. As Webber decides, you can see again rain on the lens of the camera back into the pits. Well, this is a bit more interesting.
Kimi Raikkonen.
What is it in Finland? They breed this sort of arrogance about racing cars. Every time I see Raikkonen, I just think of Mika Häkkinen. The head position the height of the head, everything about it. And there's a problem for Häkkinen.
Yeah, for Heidfeld. Yeah, it's almost the same place as he stopped before, isn't it, John?
Yes,
At the end of the first free practice session, I don't quite know what's going on. Whether they've got some electrical glitch or whatever that seems to cut in just at that particular point on the track, but whatever it is, Nick's getting used to that part of the circuit. And it's an awfully long way from the pits there, isn't it?
Well, you're just about as far as you can get. You've got to either be lucky and get somebody with a motorbike to take you around the perimeter, or he's on the wrong side of the track even to get a lift across the lake.
Get a swim, got to swim across from there. So the Sauber pit trying to work out what on earth's going wrong with Nick Heidfeld's car and why it keeps stopping. There's only 5.5 minutes left in this session. The dying moments where you would normally expect to see some rapid times being set, but I don't think the track's up to it just yet.
I think the back end of the track, turn 13 all the way back to the final corner, turn 16 on to start, finish straight. Looks to me as if it is getting slippery. I was just watching Raikkonen off camera, and his car was sliding around quite a lot, so he's come in. But Heidfeld twice now in these two sessions as he stopped at the same part of the track, and it's more than coincidence, I'm sure. Yeah,
very strange. Well, the fans are getting a good close-up view of the Sauber as it trickles past them. Here comes Ralf Schumacher back into the pits. 28 laps he has completed throughout this morning's free practice sessions then, and finds himself in fourth position.
Bad, but difficult to say, really. I mean, I'm happy to leave it in, really. Well, maybe I have to speak to Juan and see what he thought about it.
That's interesting. Prepare to talk to Juan and see what he thinks about it.
Well, he got it.
In the meantime, while Ralf Schumacher's come in, Rubens Barrichello has gone back out onto the circuit, and we've just got over 4 minutes of the session remaining. Michael Schumacher in the pits. He's given up, I think, for the rest of the day, as we look at the Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello.
Yeah, Rubens is just coasting around at the moment, just looking on down the list at the moment. Jenson Button down in 13th position, just ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Alan McNish, 15th fastest, getting all set for his first Formula One qualifying session coming up in a short time. Here we are on board with Rubens Barrichello then. I wonder if we can get an idea of just how slippery it is out there.
And he was the only car on circuit. Now Villeneuve has joined him, but it looked pretty tricky down in turn 6. He wasn't too committed. He was certainly waiting to see how much grip there was before he got back on the throttle.
So Ralph's out of his car. That'll be the end of the session for him, with only 3.5 minutes left to run. Little discussion going on now. This is, John, where the decisions are made as to the exact setup for qualifying. Here comes Michael.
Well, indeed, I thought he was going to sit it out, but 3 minutes and 15 seconds as he goes across the line, so he'll obviously get back and around to get a flying lap before the checkered flag comes out to bring the session to an end. Frentzen waiting to do the same thing, and he's cutting it even finer. Michael Schumacher not so prepared to give Rubens Barrichello any ground whatsoever. If there's anything to be gained by Barrichello being out, Michael's going to go out as well.
That's right, he wants to maintain his position as unquestioned team leader. I don't think there would be any problem about that, but look at the rain falling again.
Yeah, that's down again on pit straight, and there you can see almost how much rain there is, that mist hanging over pit straight, and that's back through 16, 15, 14 and turn 13, which leads you from the back. So Rubens has come back in again. He said, it ain't worth it, I'm just going to bring my car in. We're going to talk about what we're going to do in qualifying as Nick Heidfeld gets bicycled back, and I'm sure that Michael Schumacher will make the same judgment as he makes his way around in this outlap.
Wide-eyed, Eddie Irvine, but I don't think that they'll be bothering to go out either if they see these guys coming back in, unless they need to just do some checks, some installation checks before qualifying gets underway. That is possible.
I've never seen Eddie's eyes look as mad as that. I mean, there's something going on in his head. To see him so wide-eyed and focused is not usual. Enrique Vanolde, be careful, Enrique, you've got to brake a lot earlier in these conditions.
And this is not the time to bend the car. The team would not appreciate it with such a short time before qualifying gets underway.
Well, he did the right thing, good job. A young man who got a lot of stick, and I felt very unfairly from his performance in Monte Carlo last year. I think he did a very good job keeping the car off the walls. It was sad for Coulthard that he was caught behind him, but well, you know, if the team hadn't caused the car to stall on the grid, then Coulthard wouldn't have been in that place.
Absolutely. Well, Bernoulli has an opportunity really this year in many ways to show that he is a quick driver. He is fast, there's no doubt. He's come up through Formula 3000. Wasn't particularly highly rated last year, although he did a good job against Jos Verstappen, I thought. This year he's up against Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the team. We know that Frentzen is very capable, and that is an accident for Alex Jung. Now, you can see the yellow flag.
That's the exit of turn 2, Ben, just after turn 1. He's come out of turn 1. He may have got it loose and then just looped it round. Kept the engine running, good job, got it going again. I mean, really traumatic weekend for Alex Jung. He's still only done a 1 minute 33.4, and compared to Michael Schumacher's 126.1, that's an awful long way to go. I mean, it's basically the best part of 6 seconds, and you're going to start getting into the 107% rule not very far away from that.
That's right, Alex Jung, the only Malaysian driver in the World Championship, and that's why he's there in many ways. Malaysia having their Grand Prix, wanting to get somebody out there, and there's a lot of support in that country for Grand Prix racing, so it's great to have somebody out there. But Alex definitely much less experienced than most of these guys, and hasn't really shown the same sort of abilities at the lower levels, but who knows, once he gets to grips with it. He's an intelligent young man, and often intelligence is the key factor that's required to be a top Grand Prix driver, so perhaps we'll see improvements from him as we go through the year. The checkered flag, it's all over for free practice.
Yes, it is, but you're talking about intelligence. What sometimes works against drivers is that they also do think too much.
Now, Peter Windsor, I think, has caught up with Rubens Barrichello. Let's go to Peter.
Rubens, you look like you're having a lot of fun out there in a very, very nice racing car.
Yeah, I mean, we actually surprised how good it is. I mean, it's been a year since we run here, but no traction control. The traction is actually working quite well. Bridgestone has done a really fantastic job for the car to be okay, and well, we're surprised because the pace is really good.
There must be something wrong with it somewhere.
I mean, the car. I mean, even the good cars have problems, and you know, when I was back in 97 or 98, when I was dreaming of a really good car, I thought maybe I won't have more of this understeer, oversteer, but it does. So it's just we have it slowly fixing the problems, but the car is suiting very well the track and the bumps everywhere.
And very good in all conditions, wet and dry.
Well, the wet is a condition that the Ferrari has always been good. And this car we know very well, and that's, I think, where the difference is at the moment.
Fantastic, and great to see you looking so happy and healthy and ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very relaxed actually. I feel that it was time for me to change a little bit things. You know, it was a lot of talking about, you know, Rubens is crying too much, and I felt that, you know, I cried too much really. It's time to stop, it's time to enjoy life. I'm here because I love driving, and that's what I'm going to do this year.
Well, let's hope you get some nice traffic-free runs in qualifying.
I hope so.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks, Rubens. And interesting to see the relaxed Barrichello there and admitting to it. Look at the times, and you can see Bridgestone on the top there with the Bs next to Schumacher and Barrichello.
I mean, Ben, if you've got a car like a Ferrari, wouldn't you be relaxed? I mean, he's just confirmed all the things we've been sort of eulogising about the car, and I mean, okay, it still has got understeer, still has got oversteer, but it's at a different latitude, or at a different plateau to everybody else.
Looking on down the list, and well, these times might give us a little indicator of what's going to happen in qualifying, but it may well be very different, and of course conditions could be the major factor. It's still drizzly, it's still some rain around. There's a 2-hour gap until they're actually on track for the start of qualifying, just under 2 hours, so we're going to have to keep a close eye on the weather conditions and see what happens. It could be a very open session, a little bit of rain around, drying off. The tyres will be a major factor. The Bridgestone seemed to have the edge yesterday when it was damp over the Michelins, but we'll just have to wait and see exactly what happens there.
Well, the one thing sure is that, I'm going to say, now I better talk about the weather, Ben. I think the weather really has been fairly stable. It's track temperature 16, ambient 17. If it was going to get warmer, it would have been happening through that session. It hasn't really changed very much, and look, there's the backdrop of Melbourne. You can see the clouds almost masking now some of those tall buildings, and I have to think that this is going to be a wet session. It's not looking very promising right now.
Well, we've seen some out on track